So the coolest part about working on this patch has been that when I started to change the oscillator settings and work with weird filters, I got a very different experience going at -60. So a range that typically is just useless, we finally make sound kind of cool. So let's go to this range initially with no anything. -60. There we go. Useless. This just sucks. Even playing it at like C2. But then if we listen to our patch, C0 is named as part of the actual title of the patch because it instructs you to go to a certain spot to find the ideal area of the sound, which I think I might start doing as a part of more of my patches, because just putting like bass doesn't really tell you where the designer intended for it to be played. La da da. So back to this new sound. Useless down here. The reason this is a beginner trick is because all you have to do is throw on a comb filter. Make sure it mixes all the way to the top. All that's good. Turn it on. Double click pitch because that's going to just set it to 0 essentially and find out what happens. You'll notice there's kind of a pulsating, I was going to say sensation, sound, because that just doesn't sound good at all. So normally you're going to hear the same kind of cycling just without any pitch. We play it again, we're going to hear the same cycling just with pitch. So I've taken advantage of this by making these different tempos, essentially. Cool bass pluck kind of sound on a patch that I'm working on. So, pretty simple. -60, comb filter on, feedback damping up, and now you can use this as a thing. You guys are going to love this because this video is going to be much shorter than most of my other ones have been. Trick number 2 goes with trick number 1 because you're going to need -60 and you're going to need ring mod. So ring mod is going to give you sub bass when you have a comb filter the way that we got it set up. And this isn't anything special. Damping and feedback is just going to allow you to hear, in this case, just the regular pitch more or less. So nothing fancy here. Let's hear our sound currently. C1, C0. And watch this. Ring mod on. Gives you a huge old sub. Oh, it's just so cool. That's the easiest trick in the book. Like you just turn it on. That's it. Now, if you want to get a little bit more advanced or intermediate or whatever, going back up into the what would make it a regular range by going up 5 octaves, you're just going to have some very weird interactions between your modulation oscillator and your comb filter oscillator 1. Especially, I mean, hey, let's even, throw a performer on it and see what happens. Cool. Like, add a reverb and a low pass filter. I don't know, just kind of going for it here. Routing, fix that. point isn't to memorize any of those steps. It's to understand that, deleting everything for a second, all we had to do to make this interesting sound design process, didn't even have to change the pitch, nothing. Just turn on the ring modulator, set to 0, comb filter on, all good there, and you're going to have a sweet sub bass. That's it. So the -60 range, like I've said, is a very weird range where crazy things happen. We're going to talk about a few tricks that can help to either intensify the craziness or calm things down a little bit. So first, on the calming things down a little bit, if we have spectrum on, that's like it normally will be, won't be on bend plus or minus, you're going to have this weird behavior, kind of this harp sounding spread, if that makes any sense. And spectrum acts like it normally does, like essentially a harmonics low pass filter. It's going to just shut things down a little bit. You can imagine how this could be kind of nice for a pad. Getting some movement, but not aggressive like this. Doesn't sound like a bit crush. So if you go to bend plus, however, it's almost going to be like the enhance button is for Photoshop. It's going to make it behave a little bit differently. What it does is it tends to like compact the sound into a single moment. If we're going with this kind of LFO pulsating pattern or vibe that it sounds like it's doing, without bend plus, chaos, anarchy, free for all, no real order. Bend plus comes in, takes charge, and it puts them all to use at the same time. Now you're saying, hey, that sounds shitty. Why are we even playing with this? Like, why are you bothering making something sound from awful to a little less awful? And the reason is, you're going to start to get some very different behaviors once you get this to this point that you can build off of. So I don't know what this is going to sound like in the next couple seconds. Let's just play around with it. Starting with a fundamentally weird, kind of shitty sound. Turn on a low pass filter, high bass. Ooh, I kind of like that. If we put an envelope on that, let's just play around here. Or low pass. Maybe a little bit lower. Beautiful. Kind of sounds a little plucky. Now let's add some distortion, see what that does. Whoa, wrong direction. Not doing that. Okay, let's go back here. Ring mod sounds okay. Ooh, and suddenly we have liftoff. Make it a pluck, and suddenly the sound that you thought sucked and was useless is kind of cool. Do our standard 2/4 split thing. Try even a frequency shifter. Cool, so we get some metallic thing. I don't know, just kind of going with it. My point is that if you start with a fundamentally different sound, like just a totally weird curveball in the sound design realm, you're going to end up with a totally weird curveball. Let's not go with oscillator 1, instead oscillator 2, turn off the comb filter, and hear what we would have gotten instead. Ooh, that's actually kind of cool. We're at 0 pitch. Turn off the modulation oscillator. Actually, it was off. Let's turn it on. So in theory, without this weird trick, we get that. With this weird trick, we get this. Different, Sometimes it'll give you some awful sounding stuff. Sometimes it'll give you some great stuff. But my point is, by understanding the core here, let's turn off the frequency shifter, blah, 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 all the effects. Low pass. Turn our comb filter back on. All because this, sorry, we need envelope 4 to do its thing. All because it had this just weird characteristic about it. Now, the restart via gate area is very important here. We do get this LFO kind of cycling behavior that we don't normally get because we're hearing, I think like I talked about earlier, we're in the ranges that isn't supposed to be pitch. It's just supposed to be very slow vibrations of the waveform. But here, since we have pitch, we're going to hear those waveforms doing their thing. Even if you ignore everything I just said, understand that it sounds like an LFO. You at least get that. So, this is going to control how the LFO behaves. If we set it to 0, you hear that pitch, and then you hear the effect. One more time. Oops, oops, 2 notes. This is going to control where the peak of your LFO is going to be, essentially. If we set it at 0, it's going to wait a second. Now, if we start at 90, the peak is going to happen a little sooner. 180, right away. 270, the longest. 360 is just like 0. So if you're trying to mangle this and tame this sound and at -60, restart via gate is one of the tools that is on your side to help control things. Bend plus is on your side to help organize rather than purely control the movement. It's just going to put things together a little bit tighter. Wavetail position can be considered kind of like a craziness knob down here sometimes. Honestly, all of these behave a little bit differently. Let's find a random one that I don't know how it's going to sound. So let's go to spectrum. Nothing too crazy. Let's try bend plus. Right there, it's a very subtle one. You're just hearing like a little bit of a higher frequency, higher harmonic come in a moment later. Now let's move the restart via gate. You see how it helps to control our little LFO. At 360, there's almost no sound for a full second. At 180, happens right away. So in this town of weird, this is your sheriff, this is your mayor, or the other way around. Don't care. Bend plus. It's a lot to think about, but you can get some very unique textures and very unique characteristics. Back to bringing this whole video back together. This was the sound that we got, which is just like that one sound, that one synth sound in Recess. Fuck that. Okay, so a lot to digest there, but I'm going to be doing some more videos in the -60 range to help process this very weird area. So that's all we got for today. Once again, you can email ryan@occstudios.com for any mastering requests, and hopefully you guys can stick with me in this -60 range. We're going to keep figuring it out. We're going to keep trying some new tricks, and maybe there will be some new ones in the next video. Till next time.